You're tuning into Notes for 1F, which is going to be translating between words and math. This is an extremely important skill when it comes to problem solving, and of course problem solving is one of the main goals of mathematics. You want to be able to use what you're learning to solve actual real-world problems. And one of the main skills for solving a real-world problem is to be able to tell what operations you need to do. And so this lesson is going to help you translate between English words and mathematics back and forth. So when problem solving, it is important to be able to translate written words into math expressions or problems, and then math expressions back into written words. So let's look at our notes here first of all. So I've got some words written down for you across the top of your paper for the different operations. So for addition, and these are not all that you might see, these are just some ideas to help you get started. But the answer to an addition problem is called the sum. It's really important that you learn these kind of words that I've circled because you'll see those a lot. For an addition problem, our answer will be called a sum. But other words that you might see that would also indicate that you have an addition problem would be words like plus, more or more than, combine, add, total, increase or increase by. Another one that I didn't write down would be altogether. For subtraction, the answer to a subtraction problem is called the difference. You might see words like subtract, take away, less or less than, decrease, minus. Again, these aren't all the possibilities, but they're some to get us started. For a multiplication problem, the answer to a multiplication problem is the product. Words you might see are multiply, times. Anytime you have repeated addition, it's going to be multiplication. For a division problem, we have the word quotient. Quotient is the answer to a division problem. Other words you might see for division problems would be divide, goes into how many times. Divide evenly would be another phrase that you would see for a division problem. Now, an expression is just a math problem that doesn't have an equal sign. And a numerical expression is a math problem with no equal sign and only has numbers, it doesn't have any variables. So a numerical expression might look like this, 3 plus 5. It's pretty simple. Some written words that you might be able to use to describe this in English with written words would be 3 plus 5, the sum of 3 and 5, or 5 more than 3. Those aren't the only options, but those will help get us started. Those are some options. So what you can see here is I've taken a numerical expression and I have translated it into English words. So these are the kinds of words that we might see in a problem when we're problem solving or in a real world situations. That's the whole goal here, to take a numerical expression or an algebraic expression that we'll talk about here in just a minute and then translate it into an English expression, and to go back the other way as well, to start with an English expression and then translate it back to a numerical expression. Right, now we're going to look at an algebraic expression. So down here we see an algebraic expression. An algebraic expression just means that I have an expression, meaning a problem with no equal sign, but it has a variable in it, so we don't know what z is. We're up here, we could have added 3 plus 5 to get 8. We can't do that down here unless someone tells us what z should be. All right, so some possible translations of 7 plus z to English words might be the sum of 7 and z, z more than 7, so we would start with 7 and add z, or 7 plus z. So those are some options there for our algebraic expression with addition. All right, let's look at our subtraction here. So I've got a problem, 5 minus 2. And some possible ways to translate that to English would be the difference of 5 and 2, because difference is the answer to a subtraction problem, or 2 less than 5. Look at this one very closely. This one is going to cause problems if you're not careful. So notice that this says 2 less than 5. That means we start with 5 and we want 2 less than that. But notice that the order of the numbers doesn't go the same as it did up in the problem here. So be aware of this one. Be careful. You have to really think on this type of a problem. So it's 2 less than something. What's it less than? It's less than 5. That means the 5 comes first, then we're subtracting 2. So it's kind of backwards. And then 5 minus 2. All right, so let's look at an algebraic expression. So this one has a variable r, 9 minus r. Some ways to translate that would be 9, take away r. So there's 9, take away r. 9 decreased by r. We start with 9 and decrease by r. And then here's that tricky one, r less than 9. That means we start with our 9 and we want r less than that. So then that's the tricky one right there. All right, let's look at some options here for multiplication. I want to highlight some different ways that you might see multiplication problems this year. Notice this one up here, it's 2 with a dot in the middle and then 7. Oftentimes mathematicians will use a dot instead of an X like this because since we're working with algebra, this can easily get confused with a variable instead of an operation symbol. So this is just 2 times 7. This is another way you might see 2 times 7. If you see a 2 and then a number in parentheses, that means 2 times 7. And then finally what we're used to, the 2 times 7 here. So again, 3 different ways to see 2 times 7. Here are some options to express that as an English phrase. The product of 2 and 7, so we know that product is the answer to a multiplication problem. 2 times 7, very straightforward there, and that's fine. And then 7 multiplied to 2. Notice that I kind of reversed that one a little bit. We started with the 2 and we multiplied 7 to it, so it's similar to this situation over here. All right, now looking at an algebraic expression for multiplication, notice that there's no operation symbol here at all. This is the way you'll very often, most often, see a multiplication problem involving a variable. So we just put the number we're multiplying by, in this case 24, and then you write the variable right next to it. That means if I told you that the y is equal to 2, this would be the problem 24 times 2. If I told you the y was equal to 3, this would be the problem 24 times 3. So this is a way to write multiplication when you're dealing with algebra, when you have variables. So this is an algebraic expression, and we translated it here, the product of 24 and y. Again, remember, product is the answer to multiplication, or simply 24 times y. Either one of those will work. Moving on to division here then, I've got 35 divided by 5. Another way to write a division problem is as a fraction. Fractions are just division problems really. So this is another way you might see a division problem. Ways that I could write this as an English phrase, the quotient of 35 and 5. And when I write it this way, I write them in order. I write the number that we're dividing into first and the number we're dividing by second. And then 35 divided by 5, just real straightforward there. So again, 2 ways to write division here, and there's a couple of options for the English phrases. All right, now for division with my algebraic expressions, 27 divided by m is the division symbol, or 27 over with the fraction bar m. And those mean 27 divided by m. The 27 is the number we're dividing into, the m is the number we're dividing by. Or how many times will m go into 27? All right, let's practice a little bit here. So we're going to translate the following written words into math expressions. 4 less than 8. Now let's be careful here. What do we start with? We start with 8, and then we're subtracting 4. So we're taking 4 away from 8. Q divided by 3. It's going to look like this, Q divided by 3. Or again, remember that we can put that as a fraction, Q divided by 3. All right, I want you to pause the video now, and I want you to answer the last 2 in this little chart, and then check in and see how you did on that. All right, 6 less than G. So we have to start with G in order to have 6 less than it. So it should be that way, not 6 minus G, but G minus 6. And then the product of D and 9, product, remember, is the answer to a multiplication problem. And when you write this, when you are dealing with a number and a variable, the number is always written first. That's called a coefficient. We'll talk about that more later on this year. But the number is written first and the variable is written second. I won't count it wrong if you don't do it that way, but that's the appropriate way to write it. Number first, variable second when you're doing a multiplication problem. Also, if you wrote 9 times D, I wouldn't count that wrong either, but this is the preferred method. Or you might have written 9 dot D, but again, you don't need that dot or that multiplication symbol because we understand this to be a multiplication problem. All right, now let's go the opposite direction. We've got the math problems over here, and we want to translate those into words. And so I'll start one, and then I want you to supply one of your own. So I'm going to say that 3 plus 5 is the sum of 3 and 5. Now I want you to pause, and I want you to write a phrase that could go with this, because there are many options. Okay, so some other options here might have been 3 plus 5, 5 more than 3. Those are some of the other options. Maybe you came up with one that I didn't see. All right, let's look at the next one. So 3y, you might remember this is a multiplication problem. So I will write the product of 3 and y. All right, now you come up with another option. Okay, you might have gone as simply as 3 times y, y 3 times, so any of those options would have been fine. And again, maybe you came up with something else. If you came up with something and you're not sure it's right, just feel free to check in with me in class and I can help you with that. Okay, next one. I'm going to say 5 less than p. Now you come up with an option. Let's pause the video and come up with your own option. All right, you might have said p minus 5. You might have said the difference between p and 5. Okay, last one, h divided by 6. So I am going to say the quotient of h and 6. And just because I wrote the h first means that we're dividing the 6 into the h. The h would be in the house if this were a long division, and the 6 would be out of the house. All right, come up with your plan. So maybe you said h divided by 6. Maybe you said how many times can 6 go into h. And again, if you have a question about what you were thinking, feel free to ask me about that. So this is our lesson for today. And again, it's translating from math expressions into English phrases or from English phrases to math expressions.